Hey guys, so what he's talking about is question and answer session. All right. First question that was asked of him was, am I supposed to just accept feeling anxious? Right, so this is a question that was posed when Greenberger was talking about acceptance, the self-help strategy of acceptance, and more importantly, for me at least, acceptance was one of, so we're talking about acceptance. As an aside, acceptance was one of the harder self-help strategies I learned. Okay, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. If you don't know anything about me by now, I highly recommend you check out my other videos. Acceptance was one of the harder self-help strategies I've learned because, it's acceptance. I'm not going to get into the whole self-explanatory. There's a video yesterday about it. It's just I remember going through that self-help strategy. Just like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with some of these, mindful, gratitude lists or thought records. I'm familiar with some of them. And then, when it comes to acceptance, I felt, oh man, we're in big trouble now. Because the first thoughts coming to my mind was, you got to accept being gay and Muslim, which is exactly what my therapist told me. You got to accept being gay and Muslim. Acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. So what does he say? This is causing me anxiety. It caused me a lot of anxiety dealing with being a gay Muslim. It causes me anxiety. He said, this is his answer. He said, consider anxiety as on a spectrum. Okay, so you have 0 to 100 and 50 in the middle. He says most patients will have a 50 at some point during their lifetime, right? He says that what CBT, does is it gives someone two ways to deal with the number, with that number. So let me just repeat that. The question was, how do I deal with acceptance? In terms of, you mentioned acceptance, Dr. Greenberger. Does that mean I have to accept having anxiety for the rest of my life? He said, consider anxiety as a spectrum, right? So in a way that means there's a 0 to 100, a line 0 to 100. And most people who are clients of therapists will have a 50 at some point. And it's that 50 that therapists are trying to work on through two ways. One is by lowering that number, and that is through progressive muscle relaxation and deep breathing exercises. And the other thing is to allow you to go to that number and basically accept, the anxiety and not do anything to the anxiety. Right? You understand what I mean? The word they're using is desensitization. Right? So that's the whole. That's where CBT is saying about acceptance, that you're going to be on the spectrum if you're seeking help. And if you're at a number, let's say 50 or most 60, 70, what CBT is trying to do is two things. Bring that number down through relaxation exercises and deep breathing and, imagery. And also allow you to get to a number around that number. And that will, and you won't do anything. You won't be like, you'll be in a way numb or desensitized to it. So that number won't be as big as it is. It'll be a 50, except you'll be, it'd be like, remember that scene in Simpsons where that guy, the guy drinks the chili? Homer drinks the chili and he's got that little candle wax thing. It's kind of like that. It's, you're numb to it. You're desensitized. It's not as harmful to you as it once was. So that's the whole point of CBT therapy. Second question is about depression. Before I get into that, just real quick, one more thing about the thing. Greenberger wants to make it very, very clear that the anxiety is not going to last forever. He's basically saying that, this is a direct quote from him. He says that, so he basically, about exposure therapy, that, this is his direct quote. He says that, it basically his direct quote about exposure therapy is, it allows one to accept the anxiety and not do anything to the anxiety, right? CBT therapists want you to understand it's okay to experience the anxiety. The anxiety is not going to last forever, right? Simple, easy. I learned this first time I actually really learned this was through the A&E Obsessed series. Dr. Shanna, genius level doctor, basically explained it in such ways that I can understand it. She basically said, like, human evolutionary response is incapable of allowing adrenaline and anxiety producing hormones to be in your body for an extended period of time, because it will allow you to not hunt, be a better hunter. It will allow you to not reproduce for your species, and it will allow you to not, for example, eat food and stuff like that, like survive and do great things that we believe like evolutionary things like hunting. If we're too scared of anxiety, we won't be able to hunt. We won't be able to raise children. We won't be able to teach our generations. So that's the basic. Dr. Shanna said that because of that, it means it's eventually going to come down. Eventually, it's going to come down. The first caveman probably had, big time anxiety, and he thought, because no one else really knew at that time about anxiety, he thought it would never come down. What he's saying is that through evolution, it came down. And the first caveman probably had no idea what was going on. Nowadays we know that it will go down, that through evolution and just through simple nature. Nature will take care of itself. Nature takes care of its own in a way. So if you accept that, and you accept that you're basically just a bunch of, as one of someone I've learned from says, just like a bag of blood, right? There's a lot of hormonal things that we can change and influence through behaviors and thoughts and through exposure, and that's what Dr. Greenberger is getting at. So, second question about depression. So, before I get into that, I'm gonna smoke a spliff, and I apologize for not making a video yesterday. As you know, I didn't make a video yesterday. I just made an intro video, and then I said I was going to do the Greenberger questions. I didn't. Instead, I didn't make a video. I was just too tired. Like, honestly, man, I was just getting tired. It was too mad. I've been working really hard in terms of making a lot of videos and trying to make quality videos. And I'm thinking about perhaps decreasing my schedule to 4 times a week. I haven't said anything yet. I'm just thinking this aloud. I don't think I'm going to do it, though. There are days where perhaps I'll do 5 videos a week, and then 4 videos the next day, and then 4 videos the next week, and then maybe 5, and then 5, and then 4, something like that. It's just something I'm thinking about, because as I said, with the exposure therapy, it's supposed to be short term, I think. And then you're supposed to kind of like learn. He talked a lot about you're supposed to like learn strategies and use them in your daily life, like breathing, mindfulness, stuff like imagery, instead of always doing it over and over again. I can see how with OCPD, that's kind of like something I want to do over and over again. I want to do it over and over again. I feel a sort of comfort in doing it over and over again. And it's not an OCD comfort. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's only when I'm realizing that I have OCPD, and this is that I full well planned this. I said I have OCPD and this is what I want to do, and then I realized, after about 5 or 6 months that, do I really want to do it, right? Because that's OCPD. You have no evidence except your own. The evidence was that someone diagnosed with OCPD, and therefore I must do this because I have OCPD. After about 5 months, I realized, I don't know how severe my OCPD is. It seems that after about 5-6 months, I can stop doing it. It's not like, I still want to do them. And in the day, though, after about 5-6 months, I start becoming someone who is like less, who has OCPD, and is more someone who's like, oh yeah, I'll make my video. And I don't feel that same level of like, I need to be disciplined about it. And you know what? I still need to be disciplined about it. I don't want to blame my OCPD. It just sounds like what I'm doing. I'm not a big person who likes to blame. Play the blame game, victimhood card. I find that a lot. Like, just as an aside, I was on a Reddit earlier today about, I think it was about Reddit Muslims, Reddit Islam, I frequent those a lot. There's something about the West, right, and their hypocrisy. It was a quote from Dr. Norman Finkelstein, who's an Israeli-Palestinian professor, who's very, very smart, who basically criticized the Europeans when they landed in the New World, quote unquote New World. They saw Native Indians who had no clothes on, and they said that they were barbarians. And Dr. Finkelstein observed that European women at that time wore lots of clothes, and they observed the natives in the quote-unquote New World having no clothes and thought that was barbaric. which is funny because nowadays we have Muslim women who wear lots of clothes, and it's the quote-unquote indigenous or American whatever women, Western women who wear very little clothes, and it's kind of odd how that's kind of changing. And there's a bit of a question, the question at the end. He said, how barbaric is it to stop Muslim women from wearing headscarves? And I was like, yeah, I guess I know it was a bit of a stretch. I mean, you're getting into a bit of like black and white thinking, like that's my psychology. The argument didn't make sense to me in the beginning because you're drawing on a lot of disparate historical kind of things and trying to make your own thesis. Like, I get it, racism exists and it was wrong, and it just seems like you're pandering to your allies a lot, because he hasn't really talked a lot about this as far as I know. He talks more about Israeli-Palestinian things. And so when he's talking about Muslims, I think he's just trying to like gain allies. This is my opinion. I mean, as I said, that's my opinion. I believe racism exists. I also believe he gave a bad example in proving it. That doesn't mean the example wasn't apt. It just didn't ring true with me. It didn't think to me like it's a convincing argument, even though I do believe it in his argument. And so the comments were like, yeah, the West, they're so hypocrites, they, the West. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, why do you guys say they so much? What's this they? Victimhood. They did it. And I remember reading a book this is before I was depressed, and I highly recommend this book. If anyone wants to know about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it was called The Great War for Civilization by Robert Fisk, one of the best journalists in the world. I know I'm getting off topic, just real quick. In this book, he talks about how in the Arab world, specifically Lebanon, where he lives, during the Civil War and all the wars that was going on, the Hamas-Israeli conflict, the Lebanese people, right, would always, and this is not Lebanese people, I think it was for most people, he was saying this is like a generality to kind of, transpose for other people. This is not just say Lebanese people. This is just because he lived there. Lebanese people, when they talk about the problems, they always talk about they, the Israelis, the government, the Americans, they. And he realized, he said, this is a comment, he said, I don't trust people who say they. Because it's like, I've heard it from everybody. I've heard they, for example, like he talked to the Lebanese, who, I mean, this is just an example. I'm sure there's a similar example. For example, he talked to the Lebanese being bombed by Israelis. Right? And he would say, and the Lebanese would say, they, right? They are the Israelis are the ones committing the war crimes. They're the ones, right? Not us. And then, of course, you talk to the Israelis, the quote-unquote theys, and they would say the exact same thing. They are the terrorists. They are the ones keeping us unsafe. They. You realize that isn't a real kind of way of looking at the world. Like, he's been around both sides, and he realizes it has nothing to do with they. To have these generalities about them being all bad and us being all good. They, this nebulous they. If you can just deal with them, with the other, with they. Right? If you just deal with that, everything else will be fine. That's kind of what he was saying, and he says that's why I kind of don't, trust Reddit posts that talk about they in the West and they in the West, because you're generalizing so much. Just good people in the West who believe in you and believe in what you're trying to say, and just have this huge they're evil, us good. This bullshit type of idea. Us versus, for me, just doesn't ring true. The whole they, like they're wrong. What do you mean? Do you know every one of them? Anyway, so I'm getting off topic. That was just, to discourage black and white thinking. It led to me having a bit of emotional reasoning right now, because I'm getting a bit, riled up about this, because that's kind of like it's like a bit of a passion of mine, like Israeli-Palestinian conflict and history, historical accuracy, politics, and stuff like that. So, second question that was asked was, when the individual is too depressed to do the worksheet or even fill out a form and doesn't want to take medication, basically, are there any tips? Like, basically, what do you do about people who don't, quote unquote, buy into therapy? And I've heard this from many people. This is basically a running theme in my videos. people who don't believe in therapy. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, I was talking with someone very close to me, and I was talking about therapy and everything, and how we don't take it seriously. And she remarked, yeah, back in the day, we would just, assume that's something you could get over yourself. So, what we need to realize is that that's not necessarily the best way to work it through. The best way to work it through is to work on what's known as changing behavioral strategies. So what that may look like is simply getting out of bed, walking around the block, taking care of your personal hygiene, eating a meal on a regular basis. And this is something that you could do with your activity schedule, right? And he says this helps overcome the proclivity to be passive when depressed. As I mentioned in my previous videos, when you're depressed, you have very rigid thinking and you have very passive thinking. And I can tell you through my examples, I would read a lot when I was depressed, and I would do the same things when I was depressed. So there was this rigidity, and then there was this passivity. Right? I wouldn't go out. Wouldn't talk much even. It would always be passivity and then rigidity. So you need to change your behavior. If someone at that point, if I knew about self-help strategies, I mean, if I simply said to myself, I need to go for a walk every day instead of reading all day, right? Take a break after about a couple hours of reading and take a walk, or I was eating meals regularly. The only problem was, you need to do more than that, because I had no idea what I was doing was part of a larger psychological self-healing context and framework. And secondly, you need someone to kind of, the food you were eating didn't change. You basically ate chicken nuggets and fries, and then fried eggs for breakfast. And so you can see, if you're noticing yourself, being passive and rigid in your thoughts, you more than likely, and you have the other symptoms of depression, then more than likely you have depression. And this is something you should definitely take seriously and work on, because it's not a joke. Depression kills people. People die from depression. People kill themselves, slit their throats from guilt or trauma. We need to take it seriously, and we can't just think, oh, he'll get it off on his own, because how many people didn't get it off on their own? How many people died so that, now we know you don't have to get, there's another choice than just simply, pulling yourself up your bootstraps and not crying, or whatever people say, walking it off, or you'll get better on your own. I'm not saying that doesn't help. I'm saying if you're in denial of something else, then you're just looking at the part, not the whole. So I think I'm going to end it here. I mean, that's what he was saying, right? That if for people who don't even take psychology seriously, like I was in the beginning, I mean, this is aimed to those people specifically now. Work on your behaviors. Work on doing the simple, just get out of bed every day. Say you're going to get out of bed, 2 times a week, and then up it to 3, up it to 4, up it to 5, right? Or I'm going to have a meal, with my family every day, or I'm going to, take a walk around the block every day, because those are strategies that you could do yourself. They're called self-help. You do it yourself. You help yourself, right? Jesus helps those who help themselves. God says in the Quran, "Verily, I will not change the condition of a people until they have changed what is in themselves," which I think the commentators mean like their heart, the turning of the heart, and so. I mean, I also take it to mean, because the Prophet, peace be upon him, remarked to a man who was walking into the mosque, and he just took his camel, he got off his camel, and just walked into the mosque, and the person said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, shouldn't you, right, mind your camel? Shouldn't you tie your camel? And he's like, tawakkal Allah, like I have trust in God, take care, God, I'm in trusting God. And we all know the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, don't be prejudiced, just my opinion, is my understanding, was the person who had the most trust in God, right? He was the one who had the most trust in God. He was the Messenger of Allah. He conveyed the Quran. He was in contact with the angel Gabriel. And he, what he said? He didn't say, you're right, oh yeah, I trust in God, definitely. He said, tie your camel and have trust in God. I'm Sadiq Rasulullah is I mean, it's kind of interesting if you think about it. This person who had access to all the truths and to basically God and his message 24/7, and he observes one of his followers walking to the mosque, not, for example, if he observes the imam observes someone in our mosque, for example, not, forgetting to, put the parking brake in, and sees their car falling off, and the imam's like, stop your car, and the guy's like, Tawakkal Allah. It's like, that's a bad example. That's a really bad. It's more like, if for example, if you see someone, going into a mosque, and I'm sure the hadith is a best example. What I'm trying to say is you should also trust in God, as well as kind of taking the means. Take the means. So if you have like depression, take the means. Do a self-help strategy. Do a behavioral strategy, because it won't get better without you kind of changing. As Jim Rohn says, everything changes when you change, right? The major key to your better future is you. It's you. You're the driving impetus of changing. I mean, I think I belabored this point to death. Hello. All right, so let's see if there's anything else I want to... I mean, I'm thinking that's probably the end of what I want to talk about. Just thinking, yeah, what I'm going to do now is also, at the end of this video, I'm going to basically, if anybody has questions about anything I've said so far in the past, months, leave it down below. I don't expect anyone to say anything. I'm just saying this because I want this to also be like a review session. Like, we're done the basic material. Like, as you can see, I'm kind of treating this almost like a class. I mean, like a course. Like, I'm a teacher, and it's for me. It's for me, because I've heard... Yeah, like, it's for me, and it's like... I mean, it's for me. I mean, I'm trying to learn this. And I think the best way to learn is through talking to others. It also helps me network, and also helps me, like, public speak and everything, so... Alright. Good video. End it here. I didn't rate the anxiety. Anyway, I'll do that, hopefully tomorrow. It was like 0 to 1 or something like that, It wasn't too high. I really should have, though. I should have went back, and I was just like, whatever. Because I made a mistake. I wasn't eating as mindful. I was taking the notes. So the last, I ate too quickly, and I kind of didn't realize, I need to also measure how much do I feel after I've eaten. So it happens. You make mistakes, part of life. All right, guys, remember, guys, stay with it.